Hey everyone, and welcome to the Career Download, where we talk about honest careers with people and the journeys that they've had. And today I have a special guest who I'm super excited to have with because I've known you long before your career started. This is
Yeah.
Larry. Larry, coming all the way from Kyle, Texas today. Hi, Larry.
Hi, thank you. My name is Larry Imgrund. I work as a product manager at Koros. We work on online communities and the customer support experience. So we have a number of products that are kind of in that realm. I'll probably talk about some of that today, but that's I've worked at Koros since 2010, and I met you around, I think before then, right? I
When
think we
did
met.
I meet you?
It was like the late 2000s because you were working with my mom, and
Hmm.
then I met you through that, and then we ended up just, like, staying in touch, but like you ended up going more into the tech realm, and I also went more into the tech realm, so it kind of just it kind of matched somehow, but that was really cool.
Yeah, it's been quite some time now because I started working with your mom in 2006. And wow, how old were you in 2006?
I was in high school. So I should tell you.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you because I've had the pleasure of watching you just grow in your career. And it's been so fascinating seeing your career. And I love that you introduced what you do now, but we'll get to it, but we'll talk about how you got there because I think it's your journey of how you got there that is the real story.
I agree. Yeah. And actually, I was going to say, and this kind of ties into it, is like there are certain people I work with that I met in high school while I was, going there, and I met them online, of course, which it would normally be like, wow, you as a teenager met somebody online. That's scary. I mean, yes, it is, but it was in the context of the product or technology that we were working on. I mean, so and I'll tell that story. I'll just use this as a good segue for it. So when I was in middle school, actually, I'm a huge gamer. I still am. I've been playing this new like poker like game lately. So I've been dabbling more in like card games versus like third person adventures or anything like that. But back then I was more into gaming, as a kid would be. And of course, I was interested in talking to other people about those games. And I ended up posting on a number of different online forums at the time. We had one at GameSpot, there was one on PlayStation, one on Nintendo, and I ended up becoming really active on the PlayStation one. And the PlayStation community at that time in the 2000s was hosted by a company called Lithium, and folks that I met on there as a user, and we would talk about games all the time. We were so active in the community, we ended up kind of getting infused into the community management team, and so I started as a moderator. Some of my coworkers started as moderators; they became community managers, and we then kind of over time split off into different tendrils of business. So some of the people that I know lead and manage support in Koros. Some people I know went into marketing. Some people, such as myself, went into product and engineering. Some people are in professional services and web engineers, and we have all learned collectively together and propped up each other, and we still largely work together, which is one of the coolest things. So I get to say that PlayStation as a brand really shaped the future for me in terms of my interest in technology and my drive to end up becoming a product manager, someone who is obsessed with technology, obsessed with solving problems with technology. And I know that I'm leaving a lot of a lot of details out, but that's the gist.
So, what I'm hearing at the heart of this, though, is you're a gamer.
Hmm. You got
All right,
it.
all right, let's get some more personal details. First, I just love that you found a career to align to something that you were just really passionate about in your youth, and you turned it into a really great career for you in the tech space. But all right, Larry, how old are you?
I am 32.
32. Oh, just knowing I knew you in high school is just it's to me. Um,
Yeah. It's cool though.
it
It's
is.
cool
It's
having like this type of like friendship because I mean we went on vacation together once in Lake Tahoe, I think it was.
awesome.
That was such a fun time. And I always remember that like as kind of uh just whenever I think about going to Lake Tahoe sometimes, I'm like, man, that was such a fun time with Sarah. Uh so I always think about that. Um
No, that was the first time I ever went to Lake Tahoe, and the last time I went to Lake Tahoe
oh
was with
really?
you and your family. I love
We should go
it.
back.
Yeah, we
It's
should. That would be
it,
really funny. Take pictures
yeah.
of when you were younger and recreate them as you're older now.
I know, right? That would be cool. I'd have to ask my dad because I think I went. I want to say it was like a couple of years after we went, and I went to go parasailing and jet skis and all that stuff. And I think I have some pictures from that time. But I think
That
I
would.
was still like, 19, 20 around that time. So
All right,
uh,
so you are 32, and when I met you, you lived in California. Is that where you're from originally?
so I lived in California from sixth grade until was like midway through college, and then I moved to North Carolina for a while, and then ended up in Texas because my office was based here, and I thought it was a great way to um, lean into opportunities. We'll probably revisit that later. So, but before California, I grew up in a number of different places. I was born in Norway when my dad was stationed in Norway in the early 90s. Then we moved back to the States for a while. We lived in Ohio. Then we moved back to Europe. We lived in Germany for a couple of years. And then I lived in Colorado before I moved eventually to California. So um, I, my nostalgia is like all over the place when it comes to vacations or trips or anything like that. I mean, it depends on what time or how old I was, but I remember all of it, and I especially miss the time in Germany and in Colorado because it was just I loved Colorado so much. In fact, I'm going in a couple of months to see it again. But it also sucks because I never really built like roots somewhere, when I
Yeah.
was early. So when people talk about living in one town for their entire like high school like or schooling journey like up until 18, it's like it's foreign to me. But having lived in California for so long, I do kind of get it too because I lived there for 14 years. So I still have ties to California and I still go back. And anyway, yeah.
So, you've traveled a bit, you've lived in quite a few places, and the kickstart to your career was really being embedded into this community, this online gaming community, and the technology that it was utilizing. Um, and you started that in high school. How did that affect your decisions as far as education goes?
That's a great question. The path that I took was because I was sick of school when I was 18, and I got the job at Koros when I was 19. I spent a while doing like warehouse jobs and all that stuff, and then went into the working remotely in 2010. By the way, really cool opportunity to be able to do that. It still is, honestly. I still feel like it is. Um, anyway, I decided when I was 18, I wasn't going to start college yet. I was going to, I did a little bit of community college, but for the most part, I decided to wait a few years. I started college when I was 22, finished when I was 26, and it did impact the career path or I guess the degree that I got. I went into business management primarily because I wanted to understand more about business and the business problems we're all trying to solve in different ways. I didn't have a direct desire necessarily to go into product management, nor, and I think that's because I didn't really know what product management was at that time. I think it was definitely a concept. It was definitely a job, but I think I was more focused in what I was doing at the time, which was I was managing a team of moderation or community managers and moderators and providing services to our customers doing that. Um, it never did it occur to me at any time like, hey, I could work on the product eventually. Once I got out of college, because I was working full time and doing college full time, I mean, it was very exhausting. Once I got out of that and I took a bit of a break, just kind of, I was still working at the time, but when I say break, I mean just literally working 40 hours a week. That was really nice for a while. And I decided I'm going to look into other jobs that I'm interested in. At the time, I was doing community strategy consulting. That's the new job that I went into. And I did that for 5 or 6 years. And that was really useful, taking my degree and what I learned in college and applying that to what I did at work. And as I started to, I guess I started to feel a sense of like, I need to be challenged more, because in my job, like working with community strategy and all that stuff, it was great in the first few years, but once you know the patterns, it starts to get old after a while. And I was really interested in the technology side, so that's how I ended up getting into product, is learning what product management was, reading about it from thought leaders in the space like Marty Kagan and a few others, and building relationships in my company at that time, pitching product ideas to the product team without even being a product manager, just like, hey, I have this idea, I'd like to pitch it to the team that would build it. And my thought was, yeah, it would be really cool to get a job in that, but I don't expect it, right? If there's an opening, I'll go for it. But I figure this is great practice for me. So that's how I ended up in product. I got lucky, there was an opening, and then I got to be a product manager for the thing that I ended up loving as a kid. And getting to, at least the project that I'm working on is taking the old platform, which is what I was actually posting on as a kid, and building the next generation of it. And that is such an amazing opportunity to get. I still feel almost like starstruck by it. Like it's just like, oh, that's so cool, I got to do this. Even it's been like 2.5 years and I still feel that same like passion and enthusiasm throughout my day. But anyway, I don't want to talk too long on that, but that's how I would describe it.
No, I love it. And I think this is why I found your career so interesting, because how few people find what they want to do as early as you did. But I also see some really great decisions that you've made over the years. And one of the things that you did was you got the job and then waited on school for a bit because you
Mm-hmm.
could make a better decision about that education. And then you started to do more, and then you grew into product management, something that wasn't even on your roadmap when you were younger. And now you're still incredibly passionate about it. So I just, and for the listeners, just to clarify, Larry, you have always worked at the same company.
Yeah, yeah, in tech especially, because I mean I've worked at other places, but the only place I've worked at in tech is Koros, which used to be Lithium back in the day. That's right.
Because I think that's so rare to see that. So not only did you wait on school, but you've stayed at the same organization. You've had loyalty to that organization. And that's so unheard of. Would you say that your friends in your circle have done the same thing, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And some have ventured out and came back. I mean, there was a number of different stories like that. But yeah, for the most part, I think all of us, like, we just love working together. And I think it's the people is why I stayed. If I was in a toxic environment, I would have probably been long gone from this company. But I really love the collaborative nature of the entire company, and the passion that oozes out of every single team. I mean, obviously, I don't want to discount saying like there's no hard times, and like there's been tons of layoffs throughout the years. Like I'm lucky to have survived all of those, but at the same time, you know, the people that I've gotten to work with, and I'm fortunate enough to still work with to this day, have, been extremely valuable to me as a human growing and in my career, obviously. But yeah, I wouldn't have traded that experience for the world. I'm very lucky and fortunate to have had that experience.
All right, we've heard a lot about your career. We're going to ask some personal questions now, if you're okay with that.
Yep.
All right. I think it's really important for people to know some of those behind the professional scene. And tell me a bit about your life. What are the things that motivate you? What are some of your hobbies? And are there things in your life that prioritize why you do what you do and work today?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was really into music, to the point where I made a lot of music on my own and had my own project. And when I was in high school, I was in a band, and a lot of my friends that I still talk to are still in that band. But I wanted to make electronic music and not funk music, so I just I switched into a different like creative realm there. Um, but and I still have some music if you're actually curious to listen to it. It's
I've heard your music, but I don't think
and
other people would mind listening
it's
to
on
it.
it's on Spotify. It's under Galactic Wave. So there's a couple of uh, like part one and part two where I put together like a kind of like a compilation of some music that I made like back then. I stopped when I it was probably a year into college because I just felt so burnt out. And that's one thing I want to say is like, if you feel burned out in like your creative output, like it's just temporary. Like you will find your groove again, but it takes some time and you have to just like let it happen. But that's just my journey, I guess. Um, Music is still a part of my life, but I would say admittedly much less so because I've started going more or being more interested into like movies and television, and uh, more so the like I can passively watch movies and everything like that, but I'm actually very interested in the craft of it because it kind of aligns with like how I approach products as well. I mean, building a product is akin probably to making a movie, as it is akin to making a soundtrack or an album. It's like that creative flow of experimentation. And I mean, when we in our world we call it agile and all this other stuff, but it truly is that when you're working in film or music. So I feel almost like I'm connecting into that thread of consciousness when I when I work on new product features or something akin to that, or I try to solve problems. It's like trying to use creativity in that way, and that's why. I mean, that's how I tie it back into like my hobbies. Is like I really like reading. I really like just learning. I'm a sponge, right? Like that's my philosophy. There's nothing I can't learn to in order to improve myself or do my job better or um, just enjoy life more, right? And I tend to enjoy life because of my learnings. It's like I feel accomplished when I learn how to solve these seemingly insurmountable challenges when I was younger. And here's one example I'll give you in the last probably 6 months. So a problem that I had in business was that we would have to do these like manual migrations and uh, take tons of posts and like manually post them and kind of copy paste and all that stuff. Well, now you can leverage APIs. I mean, you could have leveraged APIs back then, but it's a lot easier to work with it now with platforms like Postman and all that stuff. Like I learned how to use APIs to solve my problem 10 years ago, and past me is probably cursing at me right now. Like, why didn't I think of this before? But I think that's just one example of, you know, I needed to understand certain elements before I could feasibly have the tool set to
Mhm.
solve these types of problems. And um, but anyway, all that ties into learning and being creative and using your knowledge in the best way possible that you can to solve those problems. And it will feel frustrating because there's probably people like me who have done this for many years and I've already figured out certain things in my career. But for those who are like new to your career, it's all about just sticking to it and like just not giving up on that. And understanding that the pain is actually a good thing. Inevitably you will struggle with certain problems, and the more you struggle to try to find that solution, or like the more you keep attempting to try to find the solution, like the more it'll come out. So I know that's kind of a sidebar on this question, but I felt it was like a good opportunity to kind of say that too.
I mean, you kind of took it to its natural progression, because I would ask you about advice that you would give someone right now. What, and maybe that's a good way to end this episode is, all right, Larry, with all your experience and all the things that you've gone through, you have that creative side to you, you have that technical side. Um, what advice would you give to younger you today?
Younger me, outside of the sticking to it, I would say, because I really liked that. I guess it's just me now reflecting back, but I really liked that I didn't make a determination on what I wanted to do, because that's like probably the biggest challenge to overcome as like a young person, is like, what do I want to do? There's so many things I could do, especially if you're passionate about so many things, right? I think some people it comes really naturally, like, oh, I'm going to make movies, like that's what I'm going to do. Or I'm it's not like somebody comes out of high school saying I want to be a customer success manager, right?
Does that
So
happen? I don't know that it does, but
well, I mean, some people maybe, but I think it's my advice to anybody, including my younger self, is like, don't be afraid to explore and learn and fail. And failure is not negative. Failure is it's learning. It's part of the learning process. So it's like you may you may read something in a book and it makes sense to you at the time, and but the thing is, like, you may not have the context to back it up. So it's all about seeking the context to back up your knowledge, and like, what are the real life examples of these situations or these scenarios in which I can learn. And I think reading is one thing I would recommend to everybody, is finding those like really important books. Now, when we started, now of course I had benefit of like YouTube and all of that when I started in my earlier career, but it wasn't as good as it is today. I think today is the best time to learn and apply that knowledge. And um, I've been going into ChatGPT and other AI tools lately in my career, and I'm impressed by the technology, not for its application necessarily in technology, though that is impressive. I What impresses me the most is that like I can experiment and test my ideas with this technology and get feedback in real time. And it is a way for me to continue learning even faster. So I have started to adopt stuff like ChatGPT
Mhm.
in my reading, like different books or different parts of product management. I think I've been a better product manager because I've used some of these tools. And I would say the same to students. I would say the same to others. Obviously, not having it write stuff for you, but uh, challenging the concepts that you learn is the
I love that. I'm a fan of AI too, Chat GPT, especially from an education standpoint. What you just said, it really resonates with me, because a lot of times education does not get the same uh, budget that a lot of other departments do. So you have to make do with less. And uh, things like Chat GPT can really just do copywriting for you really quickly. There's a lot of other platforms that can do a lot of copywriting for you. It can do a lot of the formatting for you too. So if you're a small team, I actually find that AI helps that. It helps you to be so much more efficient. One of my favorite finds, though, is one called Read AI. and it's not on this, but if you add it to your meetings, it literally does a synopsis of your entire meeting. If you are using inclusive language, if what questions are you asking, what are the calls to action from your meeting? It's amazing. You don't have to make women be your note takers anymore, Larry.
Yep. Or in my case, I would always volunteer to take notes because I just like for me it's like I want to determine or distill the actions out of that conversation versus like
Mhm.
summarizing everything. But now that we can summarize everything, it's like so much easier. Like, okay,
Right?
I forgot that piece of context on this
Mhm.
question. Why were we talking about this again? Oh, okay, I can just like
Yep.
read the transcript. So
Amazing.
it
Also, that
really is,
wasn't
yeah.
a commentary on you that you make women be note takers. That was a commentary on society as a whole. Just
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanna
no,
clarify.
totally, totally. No, but yeah, for sure, I love this technology. And I'm gonna check out Read. Is it Read AI?
I believe it is, but I just know it as Read AI, and it comes into all my meetings automatically now, so that I don't have to worry about taking notes and I can focus on the person in the meeting instead.
Yep, yep, for sure.
Which how awesome is that? I love it. All right,
Yep.
Larry, any parting words for our listeners?
No, honestly, I think thanks for listening to me talk about my career and everything. I really hope that some of the points resonate with you. And I think no matter what, there's so much opportunity in this world that even with AI, I know it's a scary concept because it still has the potential to replace a lot of jobs and
Mhm.
really upend the industry. There's no doubt about that. But I think the more we leverage it and lean into it, the more opportunities we create for ourselves. It's kind of like the analogy I heard on a different podcast was think about 100 years ago when cars were starting to kind of become into the mainstream and there was something that somebody built like a horse caricature or something like that to put on the front of their car to avoid spooking the horses that were on the road, right? It's like that. Like if you think about horses being on the road now, it's just like no, there's no way. But it evolved to that point, and I see the same with AI, and I see the same with some other technologies too. Who knows where it's going to be in 100 years? But I see it as a great opportunity for society, no matter what.
That's a great one to end on, and why your approach with always learning is so important to people these days. You never know what's coming next. But thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed what you listened to, please share with your network and check out bedatalit.com for more information and like and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. Take care.